We're ready for the start. They're off.
Welcome in, everybody. It's official, the Hot Topic Show, where we take on 5 issues each week, where Jeff Siegel and Jeremy Plonk from First Bet and Express Bet try to give you our opinions on the hot issues in horse racing. Jeff, we'll have 5 topics to talk about this week, but welcome in.
Yeah, we've got another good group of topics to dive into. Some of them a little bit controversial, others matter of fact, as we look forward to the opening of Saratoga on Thursday and then Del Mar the following week. So this the last couple of 3 weeks or so, kind of clean up, not only going back and looking at what happened and trying to formulate some plans for the next month or two, but taking a little bit of a breather. I'm ready to go. I don't know about you, Jeremy, but I am ready to roll here. I'm kicking the barn down, as they say, and let's get down and dirty.
All right, let's do it. One guy who doesn't want to see last weekend was trainer Kenny McPeek, and he's our first topic on the big board. Ken's excellent adventures last week. Jeff, from Belmont Park to Indiana Grand to the Iowa cornfields at Prairie Meadows. There was no stopping Kenny McPeek last week. Of course, his big winner was with Classic Causeway in the Belmont Invitational Derby. Your thoughts on that performance?
I missed this one. I sometimes you go back and you re-handicap a race and you see things maybe you think you should have seen before. Here's a horse by Giants Causeway, first time on the grass. The other main speed scratched, Emmanuel, 26-1. I'm not saying you have to dive in there and bet him to win and think that he's not going to win, but you got to use him somewhere, and I didn't. But I've also found something about this barn that I have to admit, Ridley, I cannot get in sync with Kenny McPeek. I'm always zigging when he's zagging and vice versa. I actually like the horse in that race. He didn't run a jump to Kenny's other horse, Tis the Bomb. I was wrong about him with other horses in Iowa. I just missed him, and I'm gonna try to figure out what I'm doing wrong, because this colt, I know it's past posting, but he could have been played. I'm sorry, he could have been played.
Well, Classic Causeway, he was a horse I drafted high. He was my number 2 pick in the fantasy league draft this year among the national media. He did me well, with the Sam F. Davis and the Tampa Bay Derby. And it never really dawned on me when they tried to force him into the Kentucky Derby. You and I talked about it, like maybe the owners want to get a call. They're both in their 80s. They're kind of calling the shots to run this horse. Brian Lynch was the trainer at the time. The horse, since running poorly in the Kentucky Derby, moved from Lynch to Kenny McPeek. You wonder how much the owners had to say with this deal more than McPeek, coming back on short rest, winning, trying the turf. He is a Giants Causeway. I think there was 3 horses in Giants Causeway's last crop, perhaps. I think this is one of them, so eventually you figure maybe the horse gets onto the turf. You think a mile might be the best distance after failing, to go too long in the Florida Derby and then in the Kentucky Derby. So maybe turf miler is the way to go eventually, but this was 1.25 miles in the Belmont Derby Invitational. So even if you liked him perhaps for the turf, did you like him going 1.25 miles? Probably should have. Let's go back and take a look at the way he finished up.
Stone Age now comes alive as the field comes into the stretch with Classic Causeway, still the one to catch here. And on the outside, Nation's Pride is coming on with Stone Age. Grand Sonata is there as they come down for the finish. Classic Causeway, here's Nation's Pride on the outside. Classic Causeway has pulled off the huge upset in his first start on the turf.
The owner of this horse, Pat O'Keefe and Clyde Cooper. If you've seen the pictures of Clyde Cooper, kind of reminds you of like Jed Clampett. He's, just a good old boy kind of, perception of him. But these guys were sharp in making the move to the, to this Belmont Invitational Derby. Pat O'Keefe, in a previous story I read and tried to get a little background on him. He said, look, I'm in my 80s. And to me, money has wings. You have it now, but it could fly away at any time. So you take your shot in life when you want to get into something. He got into horse racing very late in life, and they're going to take their shots now because money has wings. I love that quote.
That is a great quote. But Classic Causeway, now they probably should keep him on grass. Even though you don't think of him as being a 1.25 mile type horse, if you look at the form, when you can get front like that, you go 48 and 12 and change. He showed earlier this winter that he was the kind of colt that if you gave him that kind of trip, he would be relentless and he'd be tough to get by. And I kind of figured that out about the 8th bull when he opened up with 2 lengths, and I'm saying, you know something, they're not getting by this horse. I've seen him. He's just for the reasons that why you drafted him in the Derby. He's one of these horses. You give him that inch, he'll take that mile or 1.25 miles. So it was just one. Maybe it was dumb luck, but he won it. And I'm looking back at that race, and that's a 26-1 shot that I should have had somewhere on my ticket, and I didn't. So you live and you learn. What are you going to do?
Well, yeah, you mentioned the Derby didn't work out for him, but this Derby did. There have been a lot of horses post-Kentucky Derby who have found success around the country. This is the second Grade 1 winner to come out of the Kentucky Derby. Of course, Mo Donegal for Todd Pletcher won the Belmont Stakes, now sidelined. The Ohio Derby went to Tawny Port, who was 6th in Kentucky. The Dwyer went to Charge-It, who was further up the track. And the Matt Wynn at Churchill went to Cyberknife, who was even further up the track in the Kentucky Derby. So 5 major graded stakes wins, including 2 Grade 1s for this year's Kentucky Derby alumni. Jeff, they're still facing the 3-year-olds, right? So can you say it's a vintage crop, that kind of deal? No, because it's still the same group and you've got some new shooters coming along. Until these 3-year-olds start taking on older horses, you won't know how good of a 3-year-old crop we have. But the Kentucky Derby, at least on its own merits right now, is holding up pretty well.
It is better than usual. And these 3-year-olds we mentioned, they still have, and we talked about this last week, there's still lots of opportunities in the next couple of months at least for major stakes wins with tremendous purses. And the championship, as we talked about, is still wide open. So everybody's got a little bit of a look or a long shot look. And if you string a couple, 2 or 3 stakes wins at the end of the year, even if they're just 3-year-old only races, and you've got a chance for some hardware at the end. So second half of the year is going to be fascinating when these 3-year-olds continue to face each other. We'll see which ones can rise to the top.
Well, it was a great week for Kenny McPeek. We told you got a stakes win in the Holman at Indiana Grand on Indiana Derby night. Didn't get the Derby there. And at Prairie Meadows in the Iowa Derby night program, he also had a win in the Iowa Oaks with Butterbean. More on Butterbean a little bit later. That's all I'm going to say as we go to topic 2 on this week's It's Official. It was a great week for Kenny McPeek, and he benefited certainly from the scratch of Emmanuel, the Todd Pletcher trainee, in that Belmont Derby Invitational. But Pletcher, it was not a lost week at all because he also took down the Suburban Stakes.
Arrive at the top of the stretch together. Here comes Dynamic One on the outside. Dynamic One has taken the lead. Untreated continues to battle on. First Captain is in between horses with less than 1/8 of a mile to the finish. And it's 3 of them across. It's Dynamic One, First Captain, Untreated closest to the rail. They're coming on to the finish here. It is Dynamic One and First Captain. And it's a photo finish. A photo finish in the Grade 2 Suburban. Dynamic One and First Captain right.
It was Dynamic One for Pletcher getting the Suburban and rising towards the top of the handicap ranks. The top of the handicap ranks are absolutely stout this year. I don't know where Dynamic One quite fits in that equation yet, Jeff, but let's talk about the positives first. Dynamic One winning there on the Stars and Stripes Festival program in the Suburban Stakes. Your takeaway from his performance?
Well, nice horse. As long as you don't ask him to do more than he's capable of doing, he'll lay his body down for you. When they tried him in the Kentucky Derby, he got beat 32 lengths last year. Tried him in the Travers, he got beat 21 lengths. Other than that, he always is there in the thick of things. He tries hard. He's not brilliant for anything like that. He's never earned a triple-digit buyer number. Yet he may be the one to beat in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. That just shows you what a horse like Dynamic One can be. He's relentless. He tries hard. He's consistent. He'll run all day. And as long as you don't ask him to bite off more than he can chew, he's going to pay off for you. I think he's a very solid horse. And I think Todd Pletcher really is realistic about what he can and can't do. And that's one of the reasons why Dynamic One has earned close to $1 million now.
You mentioned the Jockey Club Gold Cup, of course, that being 1.25 miles at Saratoga. Now used to be the Belmont Fall race, now at the end of the Saratoga meet. And it kind of follows the Whitney on the Saratoga Handicap Division program. The Whitney at 1 1/8 miles gets the brilliant fast horses. The 1.25 miles Jockey Club Gold Cup could play more to a horse like Dynamic One and others similar to him. Now, we mentioned that it was a mixed bag week for trainer Todd Pletcher because he was forced to scratch Emmanuel from the Jockey Club Gold Cup, or from the Belmont Invitational Derby. The reason for the scratch and the reporting was slow to kind of trickle out. There was a steward's decision. It comes down to a medication situation, Jeff. And as covered by Daily Racing Form, you see the headline, trainer fined for drug procedural misstep. Kind wording, to be sure, for a subject that often cannot be kind in the press. Todd Pletcher, given the benefit of the doubt from the racing media here, has he earned that respect? Is it protectionism, as we say, for some of the bigger barns in the country? That's hard to say. You can't get inside somebody's head. All you know is what they say. And whether this is a procedural error, an intentional error, things like that, we won't know. We don't know the motives behind it, but we do know the way these things are covered. And in certain jurisdictions, coverage like that would not have been as nice as words like misstep, like administrative error, procedural. Those are benefits of the doubt given by racing press. And so Todd Pletcher will be fined, I think, $1,000 for this. There were 3 treatments, I believe, mostly butte type treatments within a week of the race. You're only allowed to do 1. So one man's procedural error is another person's, well, they tried to do something legal once 3 times. I mean, the rules are out there. There was some discrepancy on how widely circulated the rules were and how much the trainers knew about them in Grade 1 stakes. Again, there's a level of benefit of the doubt you have with everybody in any situation, whether you're a parent, when your children tell you something, there's a benefit of the doubt that either is extended or it gets worn out at some point. And for me, with Todd Pletcher, with other trainers, if everybody was squeaky clean and we didn't have these stories to talk about, your ability to extend the benefit of the doubt goes a lot farther. The skepticism starts to roll in at some point as we see some of these stories happen repeatedly. So where it will come down, I think it's probably an open and shut case. He'll pay the fine and we'll move on from it. And that's the way the New York Gaming Commission is going to handle things. As far as players go, I think we probably keep our eyes open. Pletcher's barn since the beginning of June, 10 for 25. At Belmont and Monmouth, hitting over 40% over the last month. Plus, as you're a gambler and you're trying to say, look, something just happened, there was a ruling made, follow the stats. That's the best thing I can say as a gambler. Follow the stats. Pletcher was hitting 40% over the last month or two. Let's see how fast he starts off the Saratoga meet. If he's rolling along just as he was before, probably nothing to see here. If he struggles now over the next couple of weeks as a handicapper, maybe you want to take a little step back and make his horses start to beat you again, as they've done so many times over the years. But, we can take this as a racing fan and get emotional about it, or you can take it as a gambler and figure out, is it going to affect my betting? And for me, I think I just want to let's see a week and see what happens.
Yeah, well, he won't be hitting 40% at Saratoga, I don't think. It is going to be really tough and very competitive there. But I think what Todd did, and I think one of the reasons why he was treated rather kindly by the press, is he owned up to it. He said, it's my mistake. I'm the blame. Find me. It was my fault. And that's not always the case in these situations. No. So I think most people believe that Todd will be a little bit more careful next time. And we'll see if it does affect his luck, whatever it may be in the Saratoga, whether he can continue on with this kind of run. But like I say, if he hits at 40% at Saratoga, now you got to be a little bit careful.
That does not happen often.
I don't think he'll be that good, but I do think he's got a lot of live ones coming up, and I'm sure he'll have his usual very good meeting.
We'll talk Saratoga in just a bit, but first we're going to keep the trainer theme going on It's Official this week. We talked Kenny McPeek. We talked Todd Pletcher. A long weekend for Charlie Appleby, stateside and abroad in France. He didn't get the big W's he was looking for, which is kind of rare for his barn, Jeff. He does so well when he comes to the United States. Charlie Appleby, get this, before his 2 losses, well, including his 2 losses this weekend in the Belmont Invitational Derby and in the Oaks, where he ran second. He's now 11 for 25 in Grade 1 stakes in the United States in his training career. 17 for 25 of those in the exacta. That's not 17 for 25 in the exacta in races. That's Grade 1 races. It's an unbelievable record. So what we called a long weekend for Charlie Appleby, running second in a couple Grade 1s, would be a career weekend for some other people.
You're right about that. Charlie's a great trainer, and he doesn't bring over these proven Grade 1 horses either. he brought a couple of horses off with the Moonlight, who was 11th in the Oaks over there last time out. Nation's Pride's a nice colt. They both ran really well. So I don't think he could be disappointed in their performance. He didn't win. Now, Modern Games did disappoint the following day in the Pujon Prat in France. Of course, remember him last year in the Breeders' Cup. And maybe he's not as good as he used to be. Maybe he's tailing off. Maybe he needs a breather. I don't know. The reports are that he came out of the race really well overseas in France, and probably will be headed to New York for his next start. I'm not sure which one, but we'll see if he can bounce back. But one thing you do have to respect is that when Charlie Appleby brings them over, they fire, and they always have to be respected. And even though he didn't win, even though it was a long weekend, the horses they ran well enough. So I'm not losing any faith. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, his filly looked good as gone in the Invitational Oaks before being run down by McCulloch. Let's go back and take a look at that one at Belmont last weekend.
Outside, then comes Haughty and Agartha, and they're in the stretch now. It is With the Moonlight who has the lead. Cairo Memories down on the inside, and here is McCulloch. It's With the Moonlight and McCulloch. McCulloch on the outside with the Moonlight. McCulloch has taken the lead in deep stretch, and it will be McCulloch. With a Rod Ortiz Jr., the English-bred McCulloch is the winner of the.
So McCulloch got the victory for Chad Brown. No surprise there that fillies on the turf in New York was a Chad Brown dominance. I saw the nominations for the Diana, Jeff. I think there are 13 or 14 nominations for the Diana Saturday at Saratoga. Chad Brown changed 10 of them.
That's correct.
Of the 14 nominees. So he's going to have that race circled. What do you make of McCulloch, the rising 3-year-old filly?
I have to admit, I've never been all that high on her, even though I liked her when she broke her maiden first time out at Saratoga, a 2-year-old daughter of Frankel. I didn't think she was even that great then, and nothing that she'd done this year indicated to me that she would win a race like this. Turns out it wasn't as strong a race as we're normally going to see, but she got there, and she kind of doesn't have a great turn of foot. She kind of grinds it out. Maybe as a daughter of Frankel, there's still more to give. She's only 3. She's only had 4 starts, so I'm sure that she's going to do better as she gets older. But I wasn't keen on her in this race. I thought there were better in there, better fillies in here, and if you liked her and you made a good score, but I wasn't one of them. And I went back and looked at it again, Jeremy, and I still would have played against her. And
I liked Haughty from her own barn better than her. I wasn't even sure she was the best Chad Brown in the race yet. Yet got the victory, but she's moving the right direction at the right time. Chad, who just won the Belmont title, will be cranked up at Saratoga to unleash his horses, especially on the turf in that filly division. Topic 4 this week on the big board. We said the Spa's around the corner. Starts on Thursday with the Schuylerville Stakes for the 2-year-old fillies. Opening day Thursday, 4-day racing week at the Spa. They get a week head start on Del Mar, which pushed back their opening week till next week. So it's really going to be spotlight time at Saratoga, Jeff. They bet $65 million on the Friday, Saturday, Sunday cards last year. With no Del Mar faced up against Saratoga, I think we could be looking at upwards to $80 million bet on those 3 days at Saratoga. We are set for a big-time start at the Spa.
I've already handicapped the first 2 days. I can't wait to get going. And checked all the workouts on xbtv.com. We've got our clockers and video people there filming all the workouts. So certainly take advantage of that. You're going to have to play a lot of maiden races there, a lot of grass races. You're going to have that extra information at your fingertips. And we are there at XBTV. So looking forward to having that. And the same thing for Del Mar. We'll have our crew at Del Mar as well a week later. So if you're handicapping seriously, and who won't be at Saratoga and Del Mar, you better check out the information when we have it for Express Bet members, because it could make the difference between a major score and a thrown away ticket. But the opening day stake is good. 2-year-old fillies, Schuylerville, grade 3, 6 furlongs, 8 out of the 9 fillies entered in the race are coming off maiden wins. Yeah. So it's challenging, but it's the kind of challenge we like to take up.
And they come from 5 different venues, from small to large, and different surfaces. Like how will the horses from Woodbine's Topeka that excelled in the debut handle the dirt and the difference in competition? Horses from Presque Isle Downs, Kentucky. You've got horses from all over matching up in that Schuylerville. It's always fun to talk 2-year-olds at Saratoga, right? I mean, it's like the lifeblood. We're rolling on to next year already in the future. But this Schuylerville Stakes, I was looking at the winners of this race historically. You've got to go back to a Shadow in 2003 until one of these 2-year-old fillies really turned out to be a star. So they are the good early summer 2-year-olds. When we get to the end of the year, the end of the meet, beyond the Schuylerville, when we get into late August and into September, that's when you're going to see the creme de la creme, I think, of the 2-year-olds at Saratoga, obviously, as the meet builds to a crescendo at the end of the season. But the Schuylerville, with a field of 9, includes 3 from trainer Mark Cassie, Jeff. His son Norm won this race last year. So Mark's thinking, we got to keep this thing in the family. We're going to run 33% of the field. And one of the horses that he's running is one called Me and My Shadow, who was a debut winner pretty impressively. She's a slightly built filly. She kind of looks like a foal who kind of grew up in Bambi. Let's take a look at her win last time out up in Woodbine.
Over on the inside, Me and My Shadow being henpicked the entire way. On the outer goes Born Dapper. They turn 2 in front of Cairo Consort. This has been a real battle. And on the outside, Born Dapper really pushing again, but it's still Me and My Shadow in front. Fast and Sexy is there with Cairo Consort. Me and My Shadow breaking away now. And inside the final 16th is going to win Me and My Shadow, drawing off to a pretty impressive final 16th. Wins by 3.5 lengths. Second, Born Dapper. Third, Cairo Consort. And fourth, Fast and Sexy. 57-18.
So as we continue our Saratoga summer setup, Jeff, with that Schuylerville Stakes, Cassie's just 7 for 79 the last 2 years at Saratoga since 2020, over 2020 and 2021. 7 for 79. I saw some of the racing press, talking to him about running 3 in this race. He says it's hard to win at Saratoga. He's got a Hall of Fame career. He's got the plaques in Canada and in the U.S., but there are no gimmies at Saratoga when a guy like Cassie goes 7 for 79 over 2 years, and he knows the numbers. He talked about, how much it is a struggle. That tells you how deep the waters are.
It's tough for sure. And this filly, we mentioned Me and My Shadow, 57 flat, 78 Buyer's speed figure, last 16th and 5 and 3. I mean, this is a very, very good filly by Violence. And I did read that story, the quotes from Mark Cassie, and the one quote that I wanted to see was, yes, we don't know about the switch from all weather to dirt, but she really has trained on the dirt very, very well. I expect her to run just as well. So that's basically all I want to hear. Now, That doesn't make her a winner, because Wayne's filly, Summer Promise, we mentioned her, very impressive debut at Churchill. She goes from the rail to the outside, which is going to be fine, just in case she doesn't break all that sharp. She can sit, stalk, and then go on with her. And the rail filly in this race, she's one to watch for down the road. Her name is Just Cindy. She's from the first crop of Justify. I was able to watch her maiden win at Churchill first time out. And what a beautiful mover she is. I mean, she barely picks her feet up off the ground. She's quick action, but with a nice stride. Looks a lot like Justify. And I really do think Just Cindy, among this group, has the best chance to go on. But she drew the rail in this race, so who knows what that dirt in her face is going to affect her. I'm not sure it'll bother that much. I'm really interested. I think there are at least 3 really good fillies in this race, maybe more than that. But Just Cindy, to me, obviously Me and My Shadow, and then Wayne's filly on the outside, Summer Promise. I think they're all going to run well in what looks to be a stronger than average Schuylerville field for me, anyway. Because a lot of times you get these real fast fillies in there, right? But they're not going to go anywhere eventually. But this group, I think, is pretty good. Pretty good field.
Lucas won this race 6 times, all the way back with Sakawista, way back in the early to mid 80s. And he's got 6 victories, looking for 7. And she was a filly, Summer Promise, for Lucas, who was part of our Stars of Tomorrow segment a couple weeks ago. We'll have our Stars of Tomorrow segment for this week coming up in just a moment. But before, Jeff, let's talk about Saratoga and handicapping Saratoga. We talked about the main event on Thursday. There's also the first race since the return of the new chute, something old, something new, the chute at Saratoga for 1 mile races. It'll begin on the clubhouse turn, have a dog leg left-hand turn, similar to what you see at Ellis Park, if you've seen that configuration over the years. The first chute race, really, that we're going to get a chance to see how it impacts racing will be in the 7th race on opening day. It's the Wilton Stakes, named for the neighboring town just across the interstate there from Saratoga. The Wilton Stakes is a mile on the dirt main track race. They've got a field of 9 in there. Jeff, I've read a lot of consternation about how the outside posts are going to be totally screwed in this race at Saratoga starting on the turn. I just asked my handicapping brethren this: How many times have you seen the 10, 11, 12 saddle towel in a dirt race lately? I mean, there's not going to be that many wide draws, you know.
Right,
I mean, like,
right.
how many horses are really going to be compromised by a really wide draw? You know, I mean, we've got 9 in this race pre-scratches for the Wilton Stakes, but it's not like we're lining up 12, 13, 14 on the dirt, and horses are literally going to be starting out, out by the Mexican Connection restaurant. I actually ate there a couple weeks ago when I was up in Saratoga. The Mexican Connection is right across the street from the new Wilson Chute. You could probably, sit on the patio and have a have a margarita and watch the start of a 1-turn or 2-turn mile race there. But I think it's a lot about nothing. I mean, is it going to be tough for some horses? Yeah, probably. And if you're down on the rail with a tight elbow start, you don't want to get, sawed off. Maybe a great post position, 3-4, something like that, just off the pine. But inside's always good. It never hurts to be on the inside to the outside. And, look, it's another quiver in the bag in these races, but I don't think it's a major point to the meet.
I'll tell you, I think the horsemen might like it, because in the past, if they had a 2-turn horse, a horse that didn't want to sprint and they didn't want to sprint him, or maybe it had a couple of sprints and they wanted to stretch them out, the only option would be to run him on the grass. So now you run him on the grass, and you don't know if he runs well because he wanted to go 2 turns or he liked the grass. And so you didn't know. But here is kind of a compromise where, okay, maybe I don't want to sprint him. Maybe he's not quick enough. I don't really want to run him on grass. I don't think he's a grass horse. I can run him in this mile race and maybe educate him a little bit. If you're outside, drop over, get some dirt, make a run and see what you got. Or if you're a speed horse, maybe you get loose. So I think the horsemen, especially with the 2-year-olds and the maidens, I think they're going to like it. I think it'll be well supported. And then it's up to us to watch the races and see what works and see where you have to be and how you have to position your horse. So I'm kind of looking forward to going to school a little bit. It's not a 1-turn mile. It's not a 2-turn mile. It's just a Wilson mile, I guess. I don't know.
You're telling me we're going to have to dust off the lime green saddle towels? The 12s are coming out to play. Maybe we'll see. Handicapping Saratoga is always a challenge because it's a bit of a melting pot. Yes, it's the star attraction on the NYRA circuit, but it also lures horses from all over the country. And once upon a time, the horses who came up from Kentucky just got it handed to them there. The Kentucky horses rarely were competitive. They were overbet off of their form at Keeneland and Churchill. But the Keeneland, Churchill, and even Ellis Park game has really risen with the historical racing and the slots money and the purse money. The last 2 or 3, 4 years, the racing in Kentucky is significantly better than it had been in prior years on the day-to-day, everyday level. And we've seen that play out at Saratoga because horses coming out of starts at Churchill Downs the last 2 summers at Saratoga have a 17% win rate. Horses coming out of races at Belmont, a 13% win rate.
Wow.
That was not the case 4 or 5 years ago. I promise you that. You saw a lot of 1-for-20s, the Ian Wilkes and Kenny McPeeks and people like that really struggled when they had horses sent up to Saratoga. That has not been the case in recent years. And 2 of the big reasons why, Brad Cox and Steve Asmussen, both of those guys have 28% win rates on the dirt at Saratoga the last 2 years. Brad Cox, 28%, Steve Asmussen, 28%. They bring up fast dirt horses from Kentucky, and they are not only very competitive, they're actually powerful with that 28% win rate on the dirt. So the Kentucky horses, the Churchill horses now up at Saratoga, Jeff, even if it is a bit of a horse for a course track, it's not Belmont, it's not Aqueduct, it's definitely a third surface in NYRA. Some horses like it more than others, but they're just not holding a class card edge that like they used to.
No question about that. I'm going to get a lot of grass racing there for sure. I want to, again, toot the horn of XBTV because we do videotape a lot of grass workouts. Mm-hmm. And I remember McCulloch working very well on grass prior to her debut last year as a 2-year-old filly. We caught some of her works and we were able to cash on her first time out. It's not a question of how fast they go because in most of these fillies, especially in the Chad Brown barn, a 2-year-olds, they're not asked for speed. It's the way they do it. You can see who's got the strength and who's got the ability to do it. So watch those workouts for the grass races. And as far as biases, occasionally that inside draw is very favorable at Saratoga. Inside speed can be good, but sometimes, especially after a rainstorm, it can be a little dead down there. So again, watch the track, watch the races early in the card. Biases aren't always there, but if they're one that it seems to be pretty obvious, go with it. Play the card, play the track. So these are things that you have to pay attention to, and then doesn't hurt to be pretty lucky too. You got to have some of that, because it's tough. You can have the best horse and lose 4 out of 5 races at Saratoga. Sometimes we know that feeling.
Yeah.
But the one thing I will guarantee you: if you like a horse, you're probably going to get your price. I mean, it may not be, may not
Mother
be
Nature and Saratoga kind of have a little bit of adversarial relationship some summers.
but
It's where the humidity hits late in the day up there, and the downpour thunderstorm is almost the hallmark of Saratoga racing. And so that 4 or 5 o'clock downpour can really change the back half of a card. So as you handicap ahead, my advice to you is, if you have a sequence like you like the early pick 5 one day, make sure you get down. Like, attack the early races, because later in the day, the weather starts to get a little iffy. We could be looking at surface changes or sloppy track versus a fast track earlier in the day. You're usually safer weather-wise at Saratoga, the front half of the card, than the back. So as you're handicapping a 10-race card and you kind of like the early pick 5 and you kind of like the late pick 5, make sure you get everything you want out of that early pick 5. And if the late pick 5 stays together, consider it a bonus, and you're ready to adapt and play. But a lot of days you might be washed out of those late day plays at Saratoga, just the way that those downpours and thunderstorms are so prevalent. Let's go to our.
Don't forget to play rolling doubles either, because you only have 30 minutes to worry about after that. Don't worry about what kind of weather you got 2 hours from down.
That's right. That's right. Playing coastal events.
Rolling doubles, they can be an attractive play.
To our 5th and final topic this week, our stars of tomorrow. As we hinted, we had talked about one, Summer Promise, for Dwayne Lucas a couple weeks ago. She goes now in the Schuylerville. We first introduced you to her on the show after her win in her debut at Churchill Downs. Well, on the 4th of July, last Monday, we had an excellent first-time starter winner at Los Alamitos in Southern California. The name is Procrastination. Let's take a look, and then we'll give you Jeff's thoughts.
And Procrastination lengthens stylishly and puts the issue beyond doubt. Well, there will be no delay with Procrastination, who wins at first asking, streaking home 6 lengths clear of Funkhauser, Classy Mademoiselle, and Free and Humble fourth.
Jeff, Procrastination for trainer Michael McCarthy. Dominant winner there in the debut at Los Alamitos. What's your thought?
Happily named daughter of Not This Time, who's turned out to be a very, very good and very popular stallion. His bulls are running. They're selling well in the sales. This is a filly that doesn't have a whole lot of bottom line, but she brought $72,000 as a yearling last year at Facing-Tipton in the fall, primarily because she's an exceptionally good-looking filly. And she ran to her good works for Michael McCarthy, winning her debut by 8 lengths and doing so in 56-4 for 5/8 on the dirt, with the last 8 and 11-2. That's what you want to see. Yeah. And I think Procrastination, not only has she got a chance to develop into being a very good filly, but this, you can run her on grass, you can run her long, you can run her short, you can do anything you want with her. And Michael McCarthy has several options there. I'm sure we'll see her in Del Mar. And although we haven't seen many 2-year-olds yet, I think you're going to see a bunch of really good 2-year-olds at Del Mar, from John Sadler and Bob Baffert and the rest of them. Right now, she's the most impressive filly I've seen. So we'll see how far she can climb the ladder. Procrastination, one to follow at Del Mar.
Now, we've seen some decent 2-year-olds come through that Los Al July session in recent years. Not a lot, but there have been some exceptions to the rule. So they're not all waiting for Del Mar. Horses like Bellafina debuted. One is a 2-year-old at Los Alamitos in July. Dr. Shivel, Ginobili. These are some pretty nice horses, but they were amongst few. So what did she beat? She can be a good one, but she probably didn't beat much there at Los Alamitos. But a good horse can come out of that short meet and be cranked up before Del Mar and then into Santa Anita's fall as they edge towards the Breeders' Cup. But Procrastination, our 2-year-old to watch this week in our Stars of Tomorrow. Bonus topic time, Jeff. Each week we have a 5th and final bonus topic. We mentioned that it was a good week for Kenny McPeek last week. It was a bad week for masculinity, however, Jeff. Kenny McPeek won the Iowa Oaks with the filly named Butterbean. And all the guys on Twitter started sending out the gifs of Butterbean, the big boxer, throwing the punches. But Kenny McPeek rained on their parade. This Butterbean is not named for that Butterbean, Jeff. Here's the tail of the tape. Let's go to it. Kenny's young daughter, Annie, named Butterbean for Butterbean Cafe character Butterbean. Butterbean Cafe is a child's a fairy comic. And so this Butterbean, I could not get her official height and weight, Jeff, but if you buy the figurine, because I've never met a fairy in real life, but if you buy the figurine, it's 11 inches tall and weighs 13.7 ounces. The Butterbean all the masculine guys thought the horse was named for, of course, the boxer toting in at 5'11", 378 pounds. So a knockout punch to masculinity to the nether reasons, Jeff. Everybody who thought this Butterbean was that Butterbean turned out not true.
I thought this filly was that Butterbean, and I picked her. And of course, I picked against her because of that. You know, I again, another situation where I can't align myself with Kenny McPeek. And when she won that race and beating the Pletcher filly that was supposed to win, I just closed the book on the day and said, okay, I'm done. I can't figure it out. But she actually might not be that bad, Jeremy. If you look at her form, she's pretty good. I mean, she's getting better. She's got a proper style. I don't know how ambitious they're going to get with her, but you know, she's a deep closing dirt filly, and she might be okay on the race. And I'm not sure if she's going to win the Alabama or anything like that, but there's more than one good race in her future, I'm sure, for this Butterbean.
We talked earlier in the show, the owner who mentioned money has wings. Butterbean also has wings, and she's making some money. Here's a recap of our topics that are now official because Jeff Siegel said so. Kenny's excellent adventures from Iowa to Indiana to the Belmont Derby Invitational. Great week for Kenny McPeek. We had the mixed bag for Todd Pletcher. Success on the track, controversy off the track. A long weekend for Charlie Appleby means running second in a couple grade ones. It's good to be Chuck. Saratoga Summer Startup. We talked about the Schuylerville Stakes on Thursday and some handicapping tips and angles to look for at the Spa, which gets its meeting kicked off here in just a couple days. And in our Stars of Tomorrow segment, we previewed procrastination. That's going to wrap up this week's It's Official. Jeff, I'll give you the last word.
Well, we're just going to enjoy this week. We'll enjoy Thursday, and we got our new version of our podcast, video cast for Friday morning. We can pump that up. We'll be handicapping the weekend races on video. So looking forward to that, and some great racing this weekend, first weekend of racing at Saratoga.
Yeah, First Call podcast. We're going to record about 11 a.m. Eastern on Friday, so should be out right around noon Eastern. You'll be able to check out Jeff and I's preview of the Saturday and the Sunday races, including these big stakes races this weekend at Saratoga. And our sister track in the First Family, Laurel Park's got the DeFrancis Dash back in the summertime, just like it was when I was a kid and when they debuted that race. That's a summertime sprint race. I'm looking forward to it back on the card this Saturday at the Maryland Jockey Club in Laurel Park. On behalf of everybody with First Bet and Express Bet, Jeff Siegel, I'm Jeremy Plonk. We will talk to you next week on It's Official.